My name is Chris, and I've spent most of my life being the reliable one in the family. I run a ranch. A tough job, but one I'm proud of. My older brother, Bruce, has always been the golden boy. Tall, charming, and effortlessly successful in my parents' eyes, despite his constant failures and financial screw-ups. Somehow, no matter what Bruce did wrong, Mom and Dad always found a way to make it my responsibility. I thought things might be different this Christmas. I spent weeks picking out gifts, making sure everyone got something thoughtful. I even made a special trip to town to get some rare coffee beans my dad liked and a luxury scarf for Mom. I wanted to show them that despite living out on the ranch, I still paid attention to their tastes. Maybe this time they'd actually notice the effort. When I pulled up to the house, I could see the windows glowing warmly. The scent of roast and pine wafted through the cold air as I approached the porch, shifting the heavy grocery bag from one hand to the other. I knocked on the door, and after a few seconds, Mom cracked it open just enough to peek out. The smile on my face faded when I saw her tense expression. "Chris," she said slowly, glancing over her shoulder. "This might not be the best moment." My stomach dropped. "Isn't Christmas dinner about to begin?" From behind her, I heard Bruce's condescending laugh. "Yeah, if you're family." I blinked, trying to process the comment. "Huh." Bruce stepped forward, arms folded over his expensive sweater. "Look, man, we talked about it. You just don't belong here. You show up smelling like the farm, dragging mud around, wearing those torn jeans. We've moved ahead. We've got images to keep up." I looked past them into the house, where the dining room glowed with warm light. The table was piled high with food, my niece and nephew playing near the tree, their faces flushed with happiness. I stood there on the frozen porch, not even allowed to enter. Mom sighed, trying to smile but failing. "Please understand, sweetie. We've got important visitors. It's just simpler if you know." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Don't make you look bad?" I snapped. Bruce didn't budge. "You get it, Chris. You're still living out there in the mud with animals. We've moved on." I forced myself to laugh, though it came out bitter. "That's rich. I own more land than half the people in this county. I make more in a month than you do in 12, Bruce. But sure, keep pretending you're above me." His smile faded, but Mom jumped in. "It's not about cash, darling. It's just, Bruce and his people care about appearances. And well, you're a bit messy, right?" "Got it." I didn't say another word. I just placed the bag of gifts on the porch and walked back to my truck, the sting of betrayal settling in. As I sat behind the wheel, staring at the glowing house through my rearview mirror, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I'd always been the one to bail them out, to fix Bruce's mistakes, to pay the bills they couldn't manage. But not tonight. I picked up my phone and dialed the utility company. "Yes, I'd like to disconnect the electricity and water at 154 Oid Road," I said, my voice steady. The operator hesitated. "Are you sure, sir? It's going to be freezing this week." "Yes, I'm sure," I replied. "They didn't want me around. Fine. Let's see how they survive without my help." When I ended the call, I stayed parked, watching the house in my mirror. I imagined Mom fiddling with the thermostat, Dad cursing under his breath, and Bruce yelling for someone to call me. My phone buzzed. Mom, then Dad, then Bruce. I didn't pick up. I just watched as the house's porch light flickered off, followed by the glow inside. They were on their own now. I didn't move from my truck for a long time. The cold air seeped through the windows, and I could feel the chill biting at my fingers, but I didn't care. The house behind me, now dark and lifeless without electricity, looked so different. Less welcoming, more like a monument to all the times I'd been overlooked. My phone buzzed on the seat next to me. Another call from Mom. This time I picked up. "Chris, what's going on?" she asked, voice trembling. "The power just went out. We're freezing in here." I didn't respond right away, letting her worry hang in the silence. "Yeah," I finally said. "That's what happens when no one pays the bills." "What? You've been paying them for years," she shouted, panic rising. "You can't just..." I cut her off. "You remember, Mom, that paper you made me sign years ago, putting the utility bills under my name because I had a steady income? You said it was just easier that way since Bruce was still figuring things out. Well, it's still under my name. And I decided I'm done paying for people who think I'm not good enough to sit at their table." She started crying, and I heard Dad's rough voice in the background, demanding to know what was happening. "Your father and I need that power. This is immature, Chris. Just handle the payment and quit being dramatic." I couldn't help but laugh. "Funny how that's always your answer, huh? Every time Bruce screws up, I have to fix it. When he can't cover the rent, I do it. When his kids need something, I buy it. But what do I get? Turned away on Christmas because I don't fit your image. You know what, Dad? I'm done pretending I'm part of this family just because it's convenient for you. There was a long silence. Then Dad growled, son, don't make this worse. Turn the power back on. We can talk about this like adults. I tried talking before, I shot back. All I ever got was excuses and guilt trips. Well, now you get to see what it's like without me always fixing everything. I hung up before he could respond and tossed my phone into the passenger seat. For the first time in a long while, I felt a strange sense of power. They didn't want me around. Fine. They could figure out how to make things work without my help. The next few hours were surreal. I drove back to my ranch where the warmth of my cozy home greeted me. I fed the cattle, checked the fences, and tried to push the anger out of my mind. But it kept creeping back, how they looked at me, how they dismissed me like I was some dirt-covered burden they had to tolerate. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I couldn't keep living like that. Later that night, as I sat on the porch nursing a beer, my phone rang again. This time it was Bruce. I debated ignoring it, but something in me wanted to hear what excuse he'd come up with. You think this is funny? He snapped as soon as I picked up. You humiliated us in front of everyone. You didn't have to make a scene. I didn't make a scene. I left. You're the one who made it clear I wasn't wanted. He scoffed. Man, grow up. Just fix the power. Mom's in tears and Dad's about to lose it. Maybe you should have thought about that before you made it clear I wasn't welcome. You wanted me gone, remember? Bruce tried to argue, but I wasn't listening anymore. I hung up again, set my phone on silent, and leaned back against the porch railing. The stars overhead looked brighter than usual, and for once, the air didn't feel quite so cold. Maybe I was done being the reliable one, the one who always showed up even when they made it clear they didn't value me. Maybe it was time I started taking care of myself instead. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, the lingering frustration from the night before still gnawing at me. I went through my morning routine, feeding the cattle, clearing the frozen water troughs, and making sure the generators were running smoothly. It was cold enough that I had to break the ice in the feed bins, but I didn't mind. The physical work helped clear my head. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated before pulling it out, half expecting another angry voicemail from Bruce or Dad. Instead, it was a text from Rebecca, Bruce's wife. Hey, just wanted to say I get it. I didn't agree with how it all went down. I told Bruce he crossed the line. You've done more for us than he'll ever admit. Just thought you should know. I stared at the message for a while, processing it. Rebecca had always been decent to me even when Bruce was at his most unbearable. I texted back a simple thanks, unsure what else to say. I didn't want to drag her into the mess any more than she already was. A little while later, I got a call from Rachel, my cousin who'd always been more on my side than the rest of the family. Chris, I heard what happened, she said without any judgment in her voice. Are you okay? Yeah, I replied, wiping sweat from my forehead. Just tired of being treated like the family ATM. Rachel sighed. I don't blame you. It's about time someone called them out. You've been covering for Bruce for years. They just take it for granted now. We talked for a while, and I found myself opening up more than I expected. I admitted how much it hurt that they just shut me out without a second thought. Rachel listened without interrupting, which was more than my parents had ever done. You know, she said eventually, you don't owe them anything. You've done more than enough. Maybe it's time to start living your own life without worrying about their mess. Hearing it from her made it feel more real, like I wasn't just being dramatic or vindictive. I was finally standing up for myself. After hanging up, I went back to work. The ranch didn't care about family drama, it needed tending no matter what. As I was hauling hay to the back barn, one of my ranch hands, Antonio, caught my eye. Family mess? He asked with a knowing grin. I chuckled. Something like that. He nodded. Sometimes family's more trouble than it's worth. You just gotta do what's best for you. They either come around or they don't. His words stuck with me throughout the day. I kept thinking about how many times I had put myself last just to keep my family happy. And for what? To be told I didn't belong? That evening, as I was fixing the fence by the far pasture, I saw a pair of headlights approaching from the main road. My gut told me who it was before I even saw the truck. Sure enough, Dad's old pickup pulled up and he got out looking more angry than usual. He stomped over, not bothering with pleasantries. You done acting like a damn child? I wiped my hands on my jeans. I'm not the one who turned my back on family on Christmas Eve. Dad bristled. You cut off our power. You left your mother freezing. I left because you made it clear I wasn't welcome, I shot back. You and Bruce decided I didn't belong, so I left. And if I'm not part of the family, why should I keep paying your bills? He hesitated, not used to me pushing back. This isn't how you solve problems. No, Dad. It's how I stop being taken advantage of. You made it clear that Bruce is your priority. Fine. Let him take care of it. Dad's shoulders slumped just a little, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't have a quick comeback. He just muttered something about how I was making things harder than they needed to be, then turned and walked back to his truck without another word. I watched him drive off, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. I knew this wasn't over, but at least I'd finally made my point. The day after Dad's visit, I was halfway through repairing the south fence when I spotted another vehicle approaching. This time, it was Bruce's truck. My first instinct was to ignore him, but I figured if he'd driven all the way out here, he probably wasn't going to leave without causing a scene. He got out, slammed the door, and stomped over. "We need to talk," he snapped. I didn't put down the hammer, just glanced at him. "About what? How I'm not family anymore?" Bruce's jaw tightened. "You made your point, okay? You screwed up Christmas. Mom hasn't stopped crying and Dad's pissed. Just turn the power back on. Stop being petty." I looked at him, unblinking. "Petty? You really think that's what this is about?" He scoffed. "You're just mad because I called you out. You can't handle the truth, you don't fit in with us anymore. You've been living out here, playing cowboy, while we've built something real." That hit a nerve, but I kept my voice steady. "Something real? Do you mean living off my money while pretending to be better than me? I'm done playing that game, Bruce. You made it clear I wasn't welcome. So now you get to see what life's like without my support." Bruce looked genuinely confused. "You're overreacting. This whole stunt is just childish." I leaned against the fence post. "You know what's childish? Expecting me to cover your bills, fix your problems, and then act like I don't belong when it's convenient for you. I've been propping you up for years and you never once said thank you. Instead, you made me feel like dirt on my own parents' doorstep." His shoulders slumped just a bit, but his pride wouldn't let him fully admit it. "Mom doesn't understand why you're being so harsh. She thinks you hate us." I sighed. "I don't hate you. I just finally decided to stop being your safety net. You pushed me out, remember? I'm just making sure you understand what that means." Bruce opened his mouth to argue, but he didn't seem to know what to say. Finally, he just muttered, whatever, and walked back to his truck. I watched him drive off, a small part of me wishing he'd just admit he was wrong. But that wasn't Bruce's way. He'd never admit to needing me until he had no other choice. That evening, Rebecca called again. Bruce came home angry. "Said you wouldn't budge." "I'm sorry, he doesn't get it." I appreciated her saying that, but I didn't really know how to respond. "It's not about hurting them," I said. "I just can't keep being treated like an outsider. Not after everything I've done." She hesitated. "I know. I told him he needs to start being honest about how much you've helped. Maybe he'll get there eventually." Part of me doubted it, but I thanked her anyway. At least someone in that house understood where I was coming from. Later that night, as I sat on the porch watching the stars, I couldn't help but feel a little bit of guilt creeping in. I didn't want to hurt my mom. She'd always been more of a follower than a leader when it came to family decisions, but that didn't excuse how she treated me on Christmas. I kept replaying the moment she hesitated at the door, trying to decide whether to let me in. It stung worse than I wanted to admit. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Rachel. "Keep standing your ground. They need to learn. Don't cave just because Bruce is whining." I smiled at that, grateful for her blunt honesty. Rachel always saw through Bruce's act, even when we were kids. I texted back a quick thanks, then leaned back in my chair, feeling the cold night air settle around me. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was the one being unreasonable. Maybe it was about time they learned what it was like to live without me holding everything together. The next morning, I got a message from Rebecca again. "Bruce is still sulking. He's telling Mom and Dad you've lost your mind, that you're doing all this just to get back at him." I couldn't help but laugh. Typical Bruce, always twisting the story to make himself look like the victim. I thanked Rebecca for the heads up and decided to ignore it for the time being. Let him stew. I had work to do. After breakfast, I loaded the ATV with supplies and headed out to the far pasture. The sun was barely up and the frost made the ground sparkle like shattered glass. I like being out here, away from the noise and the drama. Just me, the cattle, and the quiet hum of the land. As I worked on fixing a broken fence post, I saw a truck coming down the dirt road. This time, it was Rachel. She pulled up, hopped out, and gave me a wave. "Thought I'd bring you some coffee," she called, holding up a thermos. I couldn't help but smile. "You're a lifesaver." She leaned against the fence, handing me a cup. "You holding up okay?" "Better than I thought I would," I admitted. "Feels weird not rushing to fix their problems for once." Rachel nodded, looking out over the pasture. "I'm proud of you. They've taken advantage of you for years. You deserve to finally say no." I took a sip of the coffee, savoring the warmth. "You think they'll ever actually see it that way?" She shrugged. "Maybe Mom will. Dad's too stubborn." "Bruce? Never. But that's not the point, is it? The point is you're standing up for yourself. That's what matters." As we talked, Rachel shared a bit about her struggles with Dad's favoritism toward Bruce. Turns out I wasn't the only one who always felt second place. Hearing that made me feel less alone, like maybe I wasn't the problem after all. Rachel stayed for a while, helping me with the fence and telling stories from her job at the local clinic. It was nice to just be normal for a while, not drowning in family drama. As she was getting ready to leave, she hugged me. "If they don't come around, that's on them. You've got a right to your own life, Chris." After she left, I spent the afternoon fixing up the equipment shed. As I tightened bolts and replaced worn parts, I kept thinking about what Rachel said. Maybe I'd been fighting too hard for something that was never going to change. I couldn't force them to respect me. I could only control how much of their disrespect I was willing to take. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from Mom. "Chris, please. We don't know what to do without you. Your father and I are fighting about it, and Bruce, well, he's not handling it well. Can you just call back? We can work this out." I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I sat on the porch listening to the coyotes howling in the distance. My old dog, Buck, trotted up and plopped down beside me, content just to be there. I reached down to scratch his ears, feeling more at peace than I had in years. Maybe this was what I'd been missing all along, choosing my happiness instead of constantly trying to keep everyone else happy. I hadn't known how much of myself I'd given up just to keep the peace. Just then, another message came in, this time from Bruce. You think this makes you a hero? You're just proving you're bitter and jealous. Keep playing cowboy, but don't expect us to come crawling back when you finally realize you messed up. I didn't bother replying. He'd never understand. And that was fine. I wasn't doing this to win him over. I was doing it because I was finally done being used. The next few days were quieter than I expected. I thought Dad would show up again, demanding I'd man up and fix the problem. Or that Mom would call nonstop, begging me to come back and make things right. But there was just silence. Maybe they were finally realizing I wasn't going to cave this time. Instead of worrying about it, I threw myself into work. Fixing the busted trough out in the back pasture kept me busy most of the morning. As I was cleaning up, my phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Bruce is at his breaking point. He's mad at you, but I think he's starting to understand. Mom asked me to reach out. They're talking about coming to see you. I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to tell her not to bother. But another part, the part that still missed having a family, wondered if this might be a chance to actually have an honest conversation for once. That evening, as I was fixing supper, headlights cut across the window. I wasn't surprised when I saw Dad's truck, but I was caught off guard when I saw Mom climb out of the passenger side. Bruce stayed in the truck, not moving. I opened the door, leaning against the frame. Figured you'd show up eventually. Dad didn't waste time. Chris, let's stop this nonsense. Your mom can't take it anymore. I looked at Mom, who seemed older than I remembered, her face lined with worry. You really think it's nonsense? I asked. She stepped forward. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to push you away. We didn't think it through. I scoffed. You didn't think through telling your son he didn't belong at Christmas? Dad glared at me. You know we didn't mean it like that. I crossed my arms. Then how did you mean it? Because from where I stood, it sounded like you made it clear Bruce was the only one who mattered. You've been doing that for years. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but Mom put a hand on his arm. Chris, we've been talking. Your father and I. We never realized how much we were leaning on you. It's just, you've always been so reliable. We didn't see how much we were asking of you. Her voice cracked a little and I could tell she meant it. I wanted to believe her, but I'd been burned too many times before. You always said it wasn't about money. You always claimed Bruce just needed more help. But why was I always the one fixing things while he messed up over and over? Dad looked uncomfortable. Bruce has had a tough time. So have I. I cut in. But nobody ever cared because I didn't make a big show of it. I just handled it. You didn't even notice. Mom wiped her eyes. We see it now. We do. We don't know how to make it right. I stayed quiet, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to hug her, to forgive and move on. But another part knew that if I gave in too easily, it would just go back to the way it was. I needed to set boundaries. Start by acknowledging that I'm not just a safety net for Bruce. I've worked hard for what I have, and I'm done being treated like I'm less because I chose to stay on the ranch. You need to see me as more than just the backup plan. Dad shifted uncomfortably, but Mom nodded. You're right. We haven't been fair. We're willing to work on it if you're willing to give us a chance. I considered it. You're going to have to prove it. I'm not just going to forget years of being pushed aside because you say you're sorry. It has to change. As I spoke, Bruce finally got out of the truck, his shoulders hunched. He didn't look angry, just tired. Chris, I messed up, he muttered. I didn't think you'd actually leave us hanging. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. I didn't reply. He scratched the back of his neck, clearly out of his depth. I never thanked you for all you did. I guess I took it for granted. That's an understatement, I replied dryly. We stood there, the four of us in the cold, trying to make sense of years of resentment and bad choices. I wasn't sure if we could ever get back to normal, but at least they were admitting it, finally. After they left, I sat on the porch, staring out at the fading sunlight. The conversation had gone better than I expected, but I still felt uneasy. It was like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like somehow, this tentative step toward resolution would unravel the second Bruce felt slighted or Dad got stubborn again. My phone buzzed, and I glanced down to see a message from Rachel. How'd it go? I texted back. Better than I thought. They actually admitted they were wrong. Her reply was quick. About damn time. I couldn't help but smile. Rachel always had a way of cutting through the nonsense. I sat there for a while, just letting the quiet sink in. It wasn't until the stars started peeking out that I finally got up and went inside. Buck padded after me, his tail thumping against the doorframe. The next morning, I busied myself with ranch chores, not wanting to dwell on the conversation too much. I'd heard apologies before, empty ones made to smooth things over without real change. I wasn't sure if this time would be different, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back to how things were. Around noon, Rebecca called. "Chris, I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "For finally standing up to them." Bruce came home, and he was actually quiet. I think it hit him that you're serious this time. He didn't try to twist it or blame you. He just sat there thinking. That's a first. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe that this could be the start of something real, that maybe Bruce was finally waking up to how much he'd been leaning on me. But I also knew how easy it was for him to slide back into old habits. "Well," I said cautiously, "I'm not holding my breath, but if he's really thinking, that's a good start." Rebecca hesitated. "Just don't feel like you have to rush into forgiving him. Take your time. You've put up with a lot. They need to earn it." She wasn't wrong. I knew that letting them back in too soon would just teach them that I could be guilt into submission. I thanked her and hung up, determined to stick to my plan of making them prove they could change. That evening, as I was feeding the cattle, Bruce's truck pulled up again. This time, he didn't come stomping over or shouting demands. He just leaned against the truck door, looking hesitant. "Mind if I talk?" he called out. I kept working, not looking at him. "Go ahead." I never really thought about how much you were doing," he admitted. "Mom and Dad always just said you had it handled. I guess I didn't realize how much that meant. I thought you liked being the responsible one." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "You thought wrong. I did it because I didn't have a choice. Someone had to keep things from falling apart, and you sure as hell weren't stepping up." He swallowed hard. "I know. I'm sorry. I always thought it was easier for you. That you didn't mind." I finally looked at him, meeting his eyes. "I minded. I just didn't say it because I was too busy fixing your mistakes." Bruce nodded slowly, his face drawn and tired. "I'm gonna work on it. Rebecca's been on my case, and I guess I needed a wake-up call. I'm not saying I'll get it right overnight, but I'm gonna try." I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to believe him, but I wasn't about to hand over forgiveness just because he finally noticed how much he'd taken me for granted. "Trying's a good start," I said finally. "But don't expect me to forget all the crap you put me through just because you're feeling guilty now." He didn't argue, just nodded and climbed back into his truck. As he drove off, I couldn't help but feel a little lighter. Maybe it wouldn't fix everything, but at least he was starting to see what he'd done. That was more than I'd ever thought I'd get from him. I stayed outside a while longer, just soaking in the quiet. The ranch didn't care about drama or apologies. It just kept going, steady as ever. And maybe that's what I needed to do too, keep moving forward, with or without them. A few weeks passed and the holidays faded into memory. I went about my routines, tending to the ranch, making repairs, and occasionally checking my phone for updates from Rachel or Rebecca. I wasn't avoiding my family entirely, but I wasn't rushing to make things right either. I needed time to let the dust settle. One evening, as I was finishing up feeding the cattle, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "We'd like to have a family dinner next week. Just us. No guests. Please think about it." I sat down on the porch steps, mulling it over. A family dinner. It sounded like an attempt to patch things up, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for that yet. Part of me wanted to go, to see if they'd really changed. But I also knew that just showing up would feel like I was saying everything was okay, and it wasn't. I shot a quick message to Rachel. "Mom wants a family dinner. Thoughts?" Her reply was almost immediate. "Go if you want. Just don't let them make it all about Bruce again. Stand your ground." I thought about it for a while before finally texting back. "I'll go, but I'm not letting them sweep things under the rug." The night of the dinner, I pulled up to the house feeling a strange mix of anxiety and resolve. The place looked the same, but somehow it felt different now. I knocked, even though I'd never had to before. Mom opened the door, relief washing over her face. "Chris, you came." She led me into the dining room where Dad and Bruce were already seated. The table was set, but not in the elaborate way they'd done for Christmas. Just simple dishes, no show, no fuss. I took a seat, nodding at Bruce, who gave me a small, awkward smile. Dinner started with the usual small talk, how the ranch was doing, how Mom had started a new gardening project. It wasn't until dessert that Dad finally cleared his throat. "Son, we've been talking. Your mother and I. We never really saw it from your perspective. We didn't understand how much pressure we were putting on you. That's on us." I looked at him, trying to gauge how sincere he was. Mom spoke up next. "We always thought you were strong enough to handle it, so we just kept asking. We didn't see how much we were taking advantage of you." Bruce, surprisingly, chimed in. "I was selfish. I didn't realize how much I was leaning on you. I'm trying to do better. Rebecca's helping me sort things out. It wasn't perfect, but it was more than I expected." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate you saying that. But I need you to understand that just because I can handle something doesn't mean it's okay to dump everything on me. I have my own life to manage, and it's not fair to keep pulling me in to fix your problems." Dad nodded, looking a bit ashamed. "We understand. We've been talking about how to balance things better. You shouldn't have to carry everyone else's burdens. For the first time, I felt like they were actually listening. Not just hearing me out to placate me, but genuinely considering how they'd treated me all these years. I wasn't sure how long it would last, but it was a start. After dinner, as we sat around drinking coffee, Bruce quietly asked, "Do you think we'll ever get back to how we were?" I thought about it. Maybe. But not if it means going back to how things were. I'm done being taken for granted. If we're going to be family, it has to be equal. I'm not just your backup plan anymore. He nodded slowly, seeming to absorb that. I get it. I never thought about it that way before. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it felt real. I wasn't sure if they would truly change or if things would just go back to how they used to be. But I knew one thing. I wasn't afraid to stand my ground anymore. If they couldn't respect that, I wouldn't hesitate to walk away again. As I drove back to the ranch, I felt a strange sense of peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because for once I wasn't the one bending over backward to make it work. They'd have to meet me halfway, and I wasn't settling for less anymore. Hope you enjoyed this story as much as I do. Help this small channel grow by hitting that like button, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Every bit of support means the world. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.